No more fucking about.
Alright, so I wrote these words to name a tactic I'm still living through. Delay as violence. My aim in this lecture is to unpack how the lyrics map the mechanisms of harm, the emotional and practical consequences, the sources of resistance, and the spiritual resources that sustain me. Okay, number one, so framing the problem, the title and intent. The title, They Expected to Outlast Me, names the adversary's strategy. Okay, I hope I'm saying this right. Attrition. Strategy, attrition. All right, so my opening intent is to make clear that I saw the tactic, I understood its purpose, and I refused to be reduced by it. So verse 1, what the delay does practically and bodily. I assert clarity. I want to make this clear, very clear. A refusal to be gaslit. I describe delay as weaponized. Legal postponements are not neutral, administrative acts but deliberate tools meant to erode me. The verse links cognitive and somatic harm. Constant stress produces mental collapse and physical exhaustion. I emphasize that the human body cannot carry unresolved stress indefinitely. I call out complicity. Systems and even my own legal team knew the damage yet allowed it, leaving me isolated and misrepresented. All right, pre-chorus. Moral claim and about delay. Delay is not neutral. It cuts like a knife, states the central ethical claim. Procedural time produces real harm. I exposed the opponent's calculation. They were confident I wouldn't be standing, making their intent explicit. All right, chorus. So, assertion of survival and counter narrative. The chorus functions as my testimony and protest. Despite the expectation of fading, I remain alive, breathing, still functioning. It reframes presence as evidence. Survival itself undermines the narrative they hoped to impose. All right, so to verse 2. The multi-dimensional strategy of attrition. I name the wider strategy: financial drain, crush me in a slow cascade, reputational damage, and emotional erosion. I show how attrition aims to affect courtroom credibility, making someone appear disoriented, late, or diminished. I call out the anticipated erasure, becoming a footnote or a tragic tale. My presence contests that erasure. Repeated pre-chorus, resisting shame and doubt. I reiterate that shame and time were tools intended to make me doubt myself and my evidence. I insist on refusing to question my truth. Standing is an act of epistemic resistance. All right, we go to the bridge. Systems, outsourcing harm, and narrative capture. I explain how opponents rely on institutional inertia. They assumed the system, the delays, my own circumstances would finish the job. This is delegating harm to procedure. I detail the psychological tactic, waiting for overthinking and shame to lead to collapse and self-doubt. I name the intended outcome, self-destruction, erasure, and then state my refusal and survival. Alright, so we move on to spiritual resources. The source of my endurance. This is very important. Crucially, I attribute my endurance beyond personal will, with the creator of all existence, guided by my ancestors, my guardians. I teach that material and institutional resistance can be met by spiritual grounding, prayer, ancestral connection, and spiritual community, provided protection, clarity, and purpose. I insist that this spiritual dimension is not private sentiment but visible evidence. Everyone will see higher powers have been protecting me. Right, okay. Practical implications and lessons. For survivors, name delay as harm. Sorry, let me repeat that. For survivors, name delay as harm. Document its effects, such as health, finances, relationships. Seek both legal advocacy and trauma-informed mental health support. For advocates and legal professionals, recognize procedural delay as potentially abusive. Prioritize timelessness, clear communication, and supports that prevent, that's that word again, attrition tactics from succeeding. For communities and allies, public presence, spiritual solidarity, and sustained witnesses, not abandoning someone to wait it out. Materially counteract strategies, erasure. So, how I turned survival into power. I reframed presence as testimony. My being here undermined their narrative. I combined practical endurance with spiritual resilience. I used voice, the song itself, to reclaim narrative authority and demand accountability. Alright, so they expected to outlast me is both a record and a strategy. It documents the harms of weaponized delay, names complicity, and shows how survival can be both personal vindication and public evidence. My final insistence is simple. I did not disappear. I am alive, guided, and visible. And that visibility forces truth to reckon with me. Alright, so bye for now. Love you all, lots of nuts.